Good morning. Thank you for joining us on our Centennial Mission Briefing on Israel and Greater MetroWest. I'm excited to see that people from all across Greater MetroWest are virtually joining us. If you have busmates and friends who are unable to join us this morning, please know that we will be sharing a link to the recording in the coming days. In 63 days, we will be at our opening meetup outside of Tel Aviv. As we discussed how to prepare everyone for this once-in-a-century experience, we knew we needed ongoing communication, a good packing list, and a few preparatory events. We wanted to provide an opportunity to learn about the current political landscape in Israel, a chance to understand the history, everyday realities, and forecast for the future of the different headlines that we see in the news or on social media. We sent out the bios for our speakers in advance, but just a word or two about each of them. Michal is the director of Greater MetroWest Israel, which oversees our allocations to Israel, as well as the programs on the ground. She lives in Kibbutz Erez, which is one of our partnership communities. Ben-Shimon has been the CEO and executive director of Jewish Federation of Greater MetroWest since 2014. Dov previously served as the executive director for strategic partnerships of the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee and major gifts officer at the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles. And I'm thrilled that we are being joined by Gil Hoffman. Gil is the executive director of Honest Reporting, which fights for Israel in the international and mainstream social media. Gil served as chief political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post for 24 years and is a lecturer on political strategy at Israel's College of Management. In addition to spending some time with us this morning, Gil will be serving as a speaker during Shabbat on the mission. Michal will begin by sharing some of the history and happenings in our Greater MetroWest partnership communities. Dov will then speak briefly on some of the values that guide our work in Israel. And then Gil will provide us with his perspective on the current situation in Israel, how we got here, and how he believes the situation will continue to evolve. If you have any questions, should time permit, please add them to the chat. Michal, Boker Tov.
Boker Tov, Shalom everyone. I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces and even happier to see new members of this special family. I'm speaking with you now from Kibbutz Erez in the northern Negev, a partnership community of ours. And I'll try to answer the question of what is partnership communities, why do we have 5 of them, and why do we need them? So a bit of the history. Our first partnership community was created on 1977, 1978, as part of a huge governmental housing effort around Israel. The new neighborhoods built were assigned to Jewish communities around the world, and we, Metro West, got Ramat Eliyahu in Rishon LeZion. The neighborhood has always absorbed waves of immigrations and Olim, starting with Yemenites, continuing with former Soviet Union, and in the past 25 years with Ethiopian Jews. The second and third partnerships were in the Negev, with Ofakim Erchavim and Arad. Both communities are challenged with major socioeconomic and security issues. The transition that we can see in those communities from the early days of the partnership until today are tremendous. The achievements, the population, the growth, the local talents and leadership with our support are now growing demographically and doing very well. Doing much better, I'll say. The 2 latest partnership communities are situated by the borders of Israel. Kibbutz Erez is by the border with the Gaza Strip, connected to us in the second Intifada. We have here Gil Hoffman, who was just sharing with us that he was here actually on the exact day of the beginning of the partnership, which was 9/11. Although it is constantly under security threat, it is a vibrant and growing community. On the far northern border with Israel, we partner with the Druze village of Khorfesh. connected with us in the Second Lebanon War. The Druze are a small Arab minority in Israel. Their loyalty to the state is inspiring. This is just part of what we do in Israel. It's a big part, but we are also very much involved with the areas of creating Jewish pluralism and enabling people to practice Judaism in different ways, and working in creating shared society where we try to strengthen different minorities, LGBTQ communities, and other groups, and create a dialogue amongst them. These days, when we follow the news in Israel, we see how crucial it is, and we see how the organizations we've been supporting over the years are major players in the field of strengthening Israel democracy. So the partnerships are giving us faces, are giving us personal connections, are giving us different and pluralistic tastes, cultures, flavors of Israel. And we know that each one of us and each one of you can connect to a different person, different sector. So we have the variety. I'll end with some good news. One is that Federation support in education, security, leadership training, and more help these partnership communities to thrive. We see the change, we see the transition. Number two is that the connections are mutual and goes both ways. Each encounter brings us closer, allow us to learn about each other and about ourselves, which is even more important, and strengthen the sense of peoplehood and the sense of Klal Israel. The third one is you will all get to visit one of these partnerships on July 5th, volunteer with children, senior citizens, young adults, and get to know them, get to interact with them. This will be the least touristy day of the mission, and it's a great opportunity to connect on a personal level. We will all celebrate with our partners in a beautiful gathering that night of July 5th. And last, for future reference, for all of you, you should know, each one of the partnerships is your home away from home. You're all welcome to visit whenever you're here, definitely in the mission, but in any other event that you're in Israel. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon in Israel. Now to you, Dov.
Thanks, Michal. Morning, everybody. Last week, as some of you know, I was in Israel again. And once again, there was an intensity and a beauty to being there. I was walking one night at twilight in Jerusalem with a friend who said that he has been to Israel dozens of times, like many of you. And each time he was in Israel, he thought, well, it's a really interesting time to be in Israel. And then he said, and every time I was planning to go to Israel, my mom would say, you have to go to Israel now. There's no better time. And I think that's true as well. There's no better time to go. It's safe, it's meaningful, and it's beautiful. I think what's important for you to understand from the community's perspective, from the Federation's perspective, is that there are dozens of ways for you to connect to Israel. You've heard some of it from Michal just now. You're going to see many of these ways when we're on the ground. But I know that many of us have questions and concerns on the political and civic side, and that's the foremost area that we want to tackle this morning with Gil. I want to emphasize that no matter who runs and wins elections or stands in rallies or demonstrations, the work that a Jewish federation like ours does that supports and builds on the ground is going to continue. And that's true in the United States during President Trump and President Biden, and it's true in Israel under Prime Ministers Bennett or Lapid or Netanyahu. There's still going to be new immigrants from around the world to receive and absorb and support. There are still youth at risk or Shoah, Holocaust survivors who are hungry or who need care. There are still people with disabilities or marginalized communities who feel disenfranchised and need help. There's still going to be a lot of friends and families and colleagues with whom we partner to build amazing partnerships and platforms and programs. So it's about caring for people in need, building Jewish life, and honestly, saving the world one person at a time. The key concepts, and I think you'll see this on the ground with us in Israel, for our work there are peoplehood, partnerships, and pluralism. And we're going to have time to discuss all of these, along with incredible experiences, astonishing site visits, and of course, amazing food when we're on the ground. So thank you for that. We're going to have time, hopefully, for Q&A a bit later. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you our speaker for the Israel Update, Gil Hoffman, the Executive Director of Honest Reporting and a true friend of our Greater MetroWest community. Gil.
Dov, Michal, and the leadership there of the MetroWest community, thank you so much for having me and enabling me to speak to such an important group of people who are going to be coming here very soon and experiencing how wonderful it is to be here in Israel as we celebrate our 75th birthday. I feel very much a part of the MetroWest family. I've covered Israel for the New Jersey Jewish News for about 23 years, and I've been through many missions to Israel of leading members of the community, and I've interviewed governors and senators from New Jersey, and the most emotional time was being with them on September 11th, 2001, when they were here showing solidarity with Israel, and the people of Israel ended up showing solidarity with them. And so you never know what the news is going to be when you're going to Israel. You never know if the news is going to be back in even bigger in America. That's part of the excitement when you're planning a trip to Israel. And when you come here, I think that you also get to put the news into proportion. It looks a little bit different when you're here than when you're over there. So I'm happy they're going to be coming here, leaving behind the hyperpolarization of America and going to a place where, fine, we have hyperpolarization too. Putting into perspective, we have 5 elections in 3.5 years. My daughter, I take with me to vote to pass on my values of democracy, just like I pass on my values that are Jewish values. And she's already voted 7 times before turning 6, 5 for Knesset and 2 for mayor. So I covered politics for the Jerusalem Post for 24 years and covered 10 elections. I'm very proud that no one knows who I vote for, even my wife. Because objectivity is very important. These are our 120 members of Knesset, smiling at you. These are the people who think they run our country. Our political system is a little bit more complicated than it is in America, where you have only 2 parties. I'm from Chicago, where you have only 1. Here we have 40. And another culture shock that there's been is that we have 70% turnout even though we had 5 elections in 3.5 years, because people care so much about what's going on here. So how did we get the government that we have now? 3 S's: security, stability, and the other side screwing up. The very diverse group of parties that have united in order to oust Netanyahu, they thought permanently. A group so diverse that would be the equivalent if in America, AOC and Ted Cruz formed a government together as co-presidents of the United States. Once the elections were called, they turned the knives on each other. And that helped Netanyahu come back. Netanyahu, by the way, right now is speaking to the Knesset alongside Speaker McCarthy, who is leading a group of bipartisan group of congressmen to Israel. And this is the opening session of the Knesset that they are both addressing. The second thing was stability. Having so many elections, that Netanyahu realized that the people of Israel were sick and tired of proving Einstein's theory of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And so he smartly ran with a slogan, "Vote Netanyahu for 4 years of stability." But the main issue that Israelis vote on is, of course, security. We had 382 terrorist attacks in the month before our election in November, and that'll definitely impact how people vote. We won't give an opinion about Netanyahu here, let you decide for yourself, but so you fill in the blanks. Netanyahu is either brainwashed or succeeded in convincing Israelis with his unprecedented persuasive abilities that he and only he can keep the people of Israel safe. And that's why they keep on voting for him. And so he is very much in power. Age of 73, his father died at the age of 102. He's not going anywhere. Um, and he right now, though, is in an interesting position politically. When he came to power, he had won finally after 5 elections, and he really felt that he could get away with anything. And the other side also had a trauma of 5 elections. Losing the election, they thought even things that we ourselves support or even proposed in the past, we're not going to let him get away with. And so Netanyahu, there were a lot of different ideas that were out there of what he would pass. It's important that when you read about ideas, you don't think they're about to pass into law. For instance, when the government was formed, they said they would change the law of return over who could immigrate smoothly into this country. And the world media reported as if it was about to happen, that it wouldn't be automatically that a Jew is defined by Hitler as someone with a Jewish grandparent. Suddenly it'll be harder for people to move to Israel. The coalition agreement of Netanyahu's government said they would have to pass this within 90 days. Well, it's been a lot more than 90 days now. They have not passed it. They've not moved it forward in any way. They haven't even formed a committee to talk about it. So I think that puts things into perspective. But what they did try to do is to change our legal system. And there are, as Dov pointed out, very strong views on this issue in Israel. While 80% of Israelis are in favor of some kind of legal reform, people are very strongly divided about how to do it. So I'll briefly explain the legal overhaul that's proposed. Overhaul is a parv word, neither here nor there. The people who are in favor of it call it a reform. The people who are against it call it a judicial coup. So the overhaul calls for changing how we choose our Supreme Court judges and changing the balance of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches to give the judicial branch less power and the executive and legislative branches more power. Now, those who are in favor of this say that the current system in which the 9-member Judicial Selection Committee has a majority of the judges, the current Supreme Court judges, and their allies in the Bar Association, has led to the court not being diverse enough. The judges tend to pick more white Ashkenazi secular left-wing men like them. And there have not been enough right-wing religious Arabs and Sephardi and women Supreme Court judges. They say that the Supreme Court is not reflective of the people, and if you give the Knesset the right to choose the members of the court, then it'll better reflect what the people want. The people who are against it are very worried. They say that we don't have the checks and balances that they do in America. We don't have a president elected separately and 2 houses of Congress. Our prime minister controls the parliament as long as he has a majority. And if he'd have a majority in the selection committee of the Supreme Court, then he could pretty much decide everything in this country by himself. And if the Knesset has an easier time, as the plan called for, overturning decisions by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would have a harder time overturning decisions by the Knesset, then someone might propose a bill, for instance, that says if you're a prime minister on trial, the trial gets canceled while you're prime minister or forever. And so that's made the people of Israel very divided. I think the fact that there have been protesters on the streets for 17 weeks in a row proves the strength of our democracy, just like the 70% turnout that helped the other side proves the strength of our democracy. And now we've shifted. The Knesset is returning now from a 5-week recess, and they're coming back, I think, with different proportions. The government, they now know they can't force anything against what half the people or more want here, that they're going to have to move forward with consensus. Things have changed. For instance, the polls now show that if an election would be held today, Netanyahu would lose the election by a landslide. The opposition parties that in the current Knesset have 56 seats out of 120, latest polls show that they would win 70 seats. Netanyahu is not the candidate for prime minister who the majority of people would like to see as prime minister. The polls show that Benny Gantz, who was our defense minister until recently, would be someone seen as more fit to be prime minister than Netanyahu. And the reason why Gantz's popularity has increased is that he's tried to paint himself as a compromiser, as a statesman-like figure who could unite the people amid this time of polarization. And that's made Netanyahu, I think, more modest, even running scared. He wants to avoid political fights right now. There was supposed to be a bill passed this month about helping the ultra-Orthodox avoid army service. He told the ultra-Orthodox today, I don't have enough political capital to be passing this, and he told them to defer it. Netanyahu is so running scared right now that he didn't even go to a meeting of the Jewish Federations of North America that Dov was at because he was afraid that he would be heckled. He didn't even send a video because he was afraid the video would be heckled. And I mean, some people say that he doesn't really care about what diaspora Jews think. He hasn't appointed a diaspora affairs advisor. He's not appointed an English language spokesman since being elected in November when he fired the previous English language spokesman of the government. But others say that it's political reasons, that Netanyahu is a calculated politician with a lot of experience and knows how to avoid some mistakes. But he did not avoid the protests gaining strength. Now, the protests gained strength not only quantitatively, with as many as 200,000 people coming out on the streets regularly to protest against his legal reform, his legal overhaul plan, but also qualitatively. When the Air Force pilots said that they would not train in order to protest these plans moving forward, that is something that could have harmed the ability of the state of Israel to protect itself from Iran and its tentacles of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad. That would have been very dangerous. And especially when Iran is moving full speed ahead with its nuclear program and becoming closer to Saudi Arabia, that we thought would be more and more our ally over here. And so that had an impact on making the defense minister put his foot down and say he won't allow this overhaul to move forward. And right now, Netanyahu does not have a majority to do it the way he initially intended, with a really far-reaching overhaul. Now it really has to be done by consensus. One more thing happened that made Netanyahu realize this. One thing that I do to help my country is for 15 years now, I've been briefing the credit agencies' representatives when they come to Israel, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Moody's. And I don't get paid for this, but I do get to pick the nicest restaurant in Israel and order the most expensive steak. But a month ago, I was asked to speak to Moody's on Zoom, so I didn't get any food out of it. And it was really important because they were facing an important decision about whether to lower our credit rating. They did not lower our credit rating. They changed our horizon for our credit rating. What does that mean? Our horizon was deemed beforehand as positive, and they changed it to stable. Now, that stable means political purgatory. They were basically sending a message to the government of Netanyahu. If you try to force through a plan that a majority of the people of Israel oppose, we're going to lower your credit rating, and that's going to hurt the economy tremendously. If you decide to do it by consensus, we'll move you back our horizon from stable to positive. And so that gave an oomph to attempts to reach a consensus. There are talks going on most days at the president's residence. President Isaac Herzog is a unifying figure in Israel. He probably has, he was chosen by a larger majority than any president in Israel's history, including those who ran unopposed. He's probably the most consensus figure in Israel, other than Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, whose birthday is today. Mazel Tov, Gal Gadot. So the president is really trying to get them to compromise and reach a consensus. Benny Gantz reported today to his faction in the Knesset that no significant progress has been made, but he didn't set a deadline either. But the deadline is the next month. By law, the Knesset has to pass a budget. That's where the focus is going to be. Then June, July, they're going to try again to pass some kind of legal steps, and can only pass the ones that the opposition agree on, that the consensus of the people think are right to do. And then the Knesset goes on recess again. They get off all of August. It's a good job if you can get it. They get off September and October for the holidays. They get a full week after the end of Sukkot to take that sukkah down. It's not so bad when the Knesset members are on vacation. And we saw that when the politicians stop arguing, we can do really beautiful things here. Dov got to see the celebrations for Israel's 75th birthday. We briefly stopped bickering in a beautiful kind of way, and focus on the accomplishments of the state of Israel over 75 years. We're the fourth happiest country in the world, and the happiest outside of Scandinavia. It's really exciting. It's a really beautiful family-focused society over here. You'll see that's punching above our weight in accomplishing so much technologically. And our economy, despite what's been going on over the last few months, is still going strong, and we have built relations with our neighbors in the region to make things even better. Countless other Israelis have gone to the United Arab Emirates and to Morocco since the Abraham Accords, and it's been wonderful to see the warm peace that we have. That's hopefully going to spread to more countries in this region as we build a brighter future. And we want, what you'll see here is prophecies coming true every day. The prophet Zacharias, when he is said amid the destruction of Jerusalem, that one day the old people and the children will be filling the streets of Jerusalem. Nobody believed him. It seemed so far-fetched, and you're going to see that here when you're here in July. The streets packed with children and people living long and wonderful lives over here. One prophecy that you won't see is the prophecy that Israel will be a nation that dwells alone and doesn't care about what the world says about us. We care tremendously about what the world says about us. We realize that there are three battles going on right now for Israel's existence. One on the military battlefield, where we obviously have an advantage. One on college campuses, where we obviously have a great disadvantage. And I've gotten to see the way that your federation and your JCRC help the college students and help train them in high school, write them for Israel, other wonderful programs that you have that I've actually gotten to speak to. The battle on the airwaves and on social media is the fairest fight, an uphill battle, but a challenging one that we can succeed in. And I do my part to help Israel succeed in that as the executive director of Honest Reporting. But you also are going to do your part by coming here and seeing things for yourself. In this day and age, we're all journalists. I'm sure out of the 100 of you here, I'm sure almost all of you are on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, LinkedIn accounts. And you could be posting what's going to be going on here on that trip, showing people the real face of Israel that you're going to be seeing. And that'll encourage more people to come here, hopefully on Federation missions through the Jewish Federation of Metro West, or on anything that Linda Scherzer and the nice people there work on, and people to understand Israel better as we deal with the challenges of being 75 years young. So I want to thank you again for coming on this trip, and look forward to meeting you personally here in beautiful Jerusalem, or if it ends up being in Tel Aviv, great.
Thank you, Gil. Michal, I think you're also joining us for this next part. So here's what we're doing, everybody. We've got about 15 minutes, and we have a few questions that already got sent. If you have any more questions, we'll see what we can get to, but you can put them in the chat, and we'll make a decent attempt to get to them. I feel like I should point out that when Gil said that last week we even stopped the bickering when he was talking, I feel like I should point out that he was actually talking about Israelis and not like Gil and Dov, but we'll get to them sometime. So here's the first question, and several people have asked me variations of this, and I think I want to ask both of you, because both of you are looking at some of the challenges that Israel is facing from different perspectives. Are you optimistic? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
I'm extremely optimistic because I get to see Israel through fresh eyes, both of the tourists, like the people coming in July, and also through my children. Look, as the grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I know they wish they could have lived the lives that my children get to live here. And seeing, if they would see now, I wish they could, the amazing accomplishments of Israel. That gives me so much hope for the future, even though we've got these great divides. I really believe that even though they haven't done it yet, a consensus will be reached that will avoid further divides among the people. And Netanyahu is a divisive political figure. He's not going to be around forever. Democracy is the pendulum. It goes back and forth. And there'll be different people in charge later on that other people won't like. And that's the way democracy works. And that the challenges will be passed on, and so will the successes.
Thank you. Michal, same question.
I'm also optimistic. Those of you who know me know that it's not on an ongoing basis, but I am optimistic for a few reasons. One is that both sides of this conflict are using the Israeli flag. Everyone is saying, we want to stay here. We want to have better life here in Israel. We believe that this is the place for us to invest in and to be connected with, whether you live in Israel or outside of Israel, but we're all holding the same flag and raising the same flag and believe in it. Second is that I get to work with a lot of young people working for Metro West, training the new Rishonim cohorts. We're now training the 21st cohort. They're amazing. They're believe in Israel. They're a perspective on how we should live here and how much they care about this place and how much they're willing to do, whether it's serving the army or in national service and serving communities outside of Israel and connecting and continuing the dialogue. I think they're the future, and I see that they're invested in this joint effort. And lastly, I think that life by the border taught me that despite all the threats, all the challenges, everything that is going on, we appreciate our lives here. We love our lives here. And I think that everyone that comes here gets the same feeling and the same understanding. So yes, I am optimistic.
Thank you. Susan, good question about government officials. The answer is actually, will we tell you about government officials coming? This is the same answer that will we tell you about opposition officials coming. It's all about logistics. There is an open invitation, not so much for the bureaucracy and the formality of having government representatives. That's not as helpful. The question is, are we inviting people, I believe, who will contribute to your sense of understanding the issues and your sense of having deep and meaningful connections to Israel? Some government and opposition officials probably aren't going to be that relevant and meaningful for that. I do believe that a lot of the people-to-people conversations and the meaningful relationships that you'll build up on the ground those will be long lasting. So I thank you for the question. It's a good question. And the answer is, we don't know. I think we've got time for one final question, which is, what's your best prediction? How is this going to play out? And you can go short term, long term, however you want it. But from your perspectives, how do you think this is all going to play out? Michal, we'll start with you, and then Gil will give you the final word. Sorry, I could do it the other way, but like.
No, for this question, my answer is that I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm not sure that each side has planned an exit strategy. We're all climbing very high ladders and high trees. I'm not sure we know what will be the end result that will make us happy and go back to our routine lives. So I don't know, but at least we stand up for what we believe in, again, on both ends, and I think we're active, and that's a lot. So
thank you. Gil, same question.
Okay, so I think I want to put this into proportion, because Michal had to spend the second day of Passover in a bomb shelter because we faced security challenges during the month of Ramadan, and we faced inaccurate reporting about what happened when the police had to deal with rioters on the Temple Mount, and they went in to make sure that the rioters on Temple Mount would not harm worshipers, and they came under attack, and then they fought back, and that led to a video that looked really bad around the world, and there were inaccurate headlines that said that the police had attacked worshipers when in fact they'd prevented worshipers from being harmed. But that video looked so bad that it led to rockets being fired at Israel from Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon all around the same time, as well as terrorist attacks here, and the murder of a mother and her two children. And that, I think, made us realize we don't live in the Midwest here. We live in the Mideast. We don't live in MetroWest. We live in a metro that anything can change anytime. And so we can't afford to fight for very long. And so that's why I believe we will end up finding the common ground necessary, not only on legal changes, but on everything. Don't know how long this government will last, but afterward there'll be a different one. We'll continue to thrive and succeed here in Israel, despite our politicians.
Thank you both. I want to just make an additional point. You're going to see this smooth running Cadillac of a mission, but I think you'll also see underneath the bonnet, underneath the hood, a lot of people who are working extremely hard to make sure that everybody is safe and secure throughout the mission. It's very important that you understand how seriously we're taking security and safety to make sure that at every single point, you will be safe, you will feel absolutely safe in everything that we do. And just to give you a sense of perspective, some of you know that you could probably tell I'm not born in New Jersey, but I came to the United States 23 years ago. And I remember as I was planning to come to the States from Israel, my friends were telling me about life in the United States and the drive-by shootings and the riots and the people opening fire on each other and all the other things that happen in America. And here I was thinking, what a terribly dangerous place America is. And many of my friends who had been to the United States told me that there is a sense of perspective that you need to have when you're on the ground and you take sensible precautions and you're in groups. And believe me, that we will be doing all of these when we are on the ground. Your safety and your security is paramount for us. And we want you to be aware of the political situations and of the challenges that Israel faces and of our role in helping meet those challenges, but also to understand that the paramount variable, the paramount factor for us is your safety and security when we're on the ground in Israel. With that, I'm going to pass this back to Ira. Thank you for those of you who sent questions. We tried to get to as many as possible. And thank you to our panelists, Gil and Michal.
Wow, thanks, Dov. Many thanks to Michal, Dov, and Gil for their preparation and engaging presentations. We look forward to continuing this discussion and many others on the mission. If you'd like to attend another Federation-sponsored event on this subject, please hold the following date: Tuesday, May 16th at noon. There'll be a Facebook Live and Zoom presentation, The Struggle for Israeli Democracy and the Role of American Jewry, with Yossi Klein Halevi, Israeli author and journalist. Thank you again for joining us this morning. I look forward to seeing you at the pep rally on Thursday, June 1st. Have a wonderful day.